Christy Heiker Ewing. Welcome to the Bookaholic Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. So, today we're going to talk about your delightful but truthful, honest book. Why did I walk into this room? So, let me just start off by saying last night I was playing a game on my phone, and then all of a sudden I forgot what the heck I was doing. Okay. I got interrupted, right? I got interrupted, and then all of a sudden I had to go back, and I was like, what was I doing? I know I was playing a game, but which game? And it was only for a few seconds, but it's still disturbing because the interruption was light. And so there it was. So I can definitely relate to why did I walk into this room. So why did you want to title your book, Why Did I Walk Into This Room?
It's funny because it's a long title, and then, of course, I sort of have a long subtitle too, and I thought, I don't know, maybe that'll hurt, but it was just the first one. I'm like, this is what I have to call this book. And when I do walk into a room, I do that thing where I'm like, I have to retrace my steps in order, and even then it might not work, but at least if you go back, you're like, okay, I know I came in here for a reason. Now, what was it? And this started happening more and more, and you talk to other women and you realize this is a phenomenon. This is part of brain fog, and people will get it immediately.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And then you can actually empathize with those people that have like two glasses on the top of their head, or like, where are my glasses? And they're up there. And I have actually done this thinking that I've left my phone somewhere, but my phone is actually in my hand. I'm like, that's fun, but it's in my hand. I'm not looking at my hand at the time, but I'm holding it. That's embarrassing. We
Just
used
the other
to
day,
just
my
totally.
husband, if he had gotten the mail and the mail was sitting on my lap.
You can't write the stuff. What wish you did. It's okay. Well, your book is totally hilarious. But let's take a serious moment to talk about perimenopause. Now, I want to state that neither Christy nor I or doctors or, to my knowledge, a medical professional on Christy's end. I am not a medical professional. And but through your research, please explain to the audience exactly what perimenopause is in accordance to your research.
Right. And so basically, it's when your body is starting to lose estrogen and all the other hormones as well. Like, I never really sat and thought about it before. I was in perimenopause, but when I went in, I finally saw a functional medicine doctor after 6 years, and did my lab workup, and she's like, you have zero testosterone. I never really thought about that before. So I was like, that big of a deal? And it is a big deal, like, because women do need testosterone. And when you have
Yes.
fear of it, then that's when you're going to start having, muscle squishiness. You're going to start having joint pain. You're not going to,
Flabby arm?
of course,
Is that the
everything.
flabby arm?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That
Yeah.
tick arm. This is why I always wear this jacket.
I think I escaped the flabby arm, I think. One thing I escaped.
You're lucky. You're lucky. It does hit women all different ways. That's true. So
Yes.
there's always a similar thread that we can all understand where the other person's coming from. Yeah. So basically, that's what it is. It's just a depletion in estrogen and hormone fluctuation. Because when you're in perimenopause, you're still cycling, and so your estrogen levels are going like this, which is why you could get a blood test today, and your estrogen might be this number. You get it tomorrow, it might be this number when you're in
Wow.
perimenopause, right?
Wow.
Oh, that's why it's so important when you see a functional wellness doctor or someone that specializes in hormone optimization to talk about symptoms. Because while your blood work is an important part of it, it's not just about that diagnosed perimenopause or whatever. It's like, well, let's talk about how you're feeling and let's
Right.
talk about what your specific symptoms are, and then we can dive into what HRT might help you with.
Right. Okay. Now, let me ask you this question. And again, to say we are not medical professionals, but based on
Right.
your research, if you know this answer, those who are in perimenopause can still be on and having their periods,
Correct.
correct?
Yes.
Because the one of the definitions of menopause is that to know you're fully into menopause, you cannot have a period for an entire year.
Yep.
So let's just make that clear that that defines perimenopause versus the menopause. Correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. And let me warn those who thinking that, oh, it's 6 months and I haven't had a period and you're crossing your fingers and all of these things. And then in the ninth month, then there comes your period and you have to start all over again with your count. That that happened to me several times thinking that, okay, I'm moving along. And I was not. No. So anyway, just be on the lookout for that. I think that's one of the things that people don't tell you
Yeah,
about
it's
at
true.
all.
And and the other thing that I didn't know, and I do write about it a little bit in the book, is I didn't know that one sign of perimenopause is a total change and fluctuation to your period. So I went through this probably year and a half where I had insanely heavy periods, intensely heavy periods to the point like, is it safe for me to leave the house? You better believe I didn't leave the house without like extra underwear, extra pants, and all the things because I was bleeding through. Like, you know how when you're a teenager, you don't know your period's going to come,
Right.
you bleed through, but it was like, I would change my pad or my tampon and, like, 20 minutes later, I'm gushing again, and I'm like, "What?" I had no
Yeah.
idea that that's another
Yes.
menopause sign is this crazy fluctuation, and so it was, like, a year and a half of that, and then thank God one of my friends t ta taught me about period like, actual underwear that you can wear that really help absorb
Oh.
absorb blood, and I was like, "Oh, thank you, Jesus," because I did not know that exists.
Oh, me
And then
either.
upon and then a pad, and then I knew I was okay.
Wow. Wow.
So, but anyway, all of which to say, yeah, so I went through that and I'm like, what is happening? Like, am I going to become anemic? I'm bleeding so much. But then we got to the other side of that. And then next thing you know, it starts backing off. And now I'm in a place, like I said, after about 7 years of perimenopause, that now my cycles are starting to become fewer and farther between. But now I'm
Okay.
53.
Okay. Okay. So soon, hopefully, since you have had a rough perimenopause, let us hope that your menopausal stage will not be as bad. I've told this story many times before that I was a teenager when my mother was going through menopause. And
Yeah.
I mean, I prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed. If you want to know about prayer without ceasing, check with me because I was praying without ceasing to please God, do not let me have a terrible menopause like my mother. I mean, I'm talking about from the time I was a teenager up until just about a few years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say he answered my prayers. Mom wasn't that bad, but I tell you, I witnessed bad enough. It was terrible to watch her go through it. It was awful. So, speaking of mothers, what did your mother or other women in your life, like aunts, your grandmother, or whoever you were close to outside, as well as your mother, um, what did they tell you about this time of life? Did they tell you anything?
They did not.
Mm,
And I will say it's not like for lack of not wanting to. First of all, there's a couple of different things. I mean, sadly, I'm just not really close to my aunt, so maybe there's that. But my mom was my best friend, and like he was my ride or die. She was everything to me. I will say, she had a hysterectomy, and I'm trying to do the math, and math is not my forte. But I was in high school, I want to say at the time, so she had a hysterectomy, and looking back, and I don't know. Again, yeah, I can't say. I wonder, maybe she was in that perimenopausal phase where she was bleeding so much, and the doctor just said, "Well, if we could just have a hysterectomy and we'll take care of that." I don't know, but she did have a hysterectomy, and I think it was because she was having really bad periods. And then she died by suicide 12 years ago, and no, I
I was
struggled
like,
a lot with
"Mhm,
depression and anxiety, and I talk
mhm,
a little bit about that in the book as well, and, again, now I can't talk to her, but it's like, you can't help but wonder how much now in her life she's struggling with some of these things that could have been hormonally related, um, that they weren't really talked about as much back in those days, and then there was that period of time in the '80s, wasn't it, where HRT was, like, taboo because a study came out that it was unsafe and it caused cancer, and come to find out it's more about synthetic hormones, and as long as you use bioidentical hormones, not only is it safe, but it's a really great idea to start in perimenopause prior to
yes,
menopause. Again, back then, it was a whole different landscape, and so I don't think she was
absolutely."
trying to withhold anything from me, it's just we didn't talk about it because it wasn't sort of discussed, I feel like, back then.
Yeah, and I think that whole HRT scare lasted probably up to the last 5 years, that
Yeah,
people were still like, I don't wanna have a heart attack,"
right,
you know?
for sure.
Now now, what about your gynecologist? I remember talking to my gynecologist, and she was terrible. As soon as I started mentioning the menopause and all of these things, she was slowly backing out the door to bolt. This was
Yeah,
a woman. And so I was so disappointed, and it caused me to change gynecologists. And so I have a new one, and
yeah,
she's fantastic. But I think fast forward, they've told or educated or re-educated gynecologists is in that your only market is not just women that's having babies who's young and "Yay, yay, yay, I'm having a baby." You're gonna have a second group of customers or patients that are going through the changes of life. Perimenopause and menopause, get it together, gynecologist. And I think that awareness has come through, thank goodness.
mhm.
But how about you? What was your regular doctor, gynecologist experience?
Well, you're exactly right. Basically, again, when there were those 6 years of me not knowing this is what I was in, I remember seeing my doctor about, painful intercourse and him suggesting he try lube, and that was his only idea there. And, I remember complaining about sleeping horrible, and he was just like, "Well, drink some tea," and I complain about, waking up drenched in sweat. "Oh, well, this is just part of getting older." I mean, it was always just, like, sloughed aside. Never did he mention hormones, never did he mention perimenopause, the key word. I did find a new gynecologist, and even now, it's funny because, it was a year ago that I went into her office having a meltdown. Basically, I was crying, I was drenched, I was having a hot flush also while crying, so I was just like a sweaty, disgusting mess. But I was so upset and I was so sad and I was in really a deep, dark place, and she didn't know how to help me really. Fast forward a year, and I came back to her. I'd found a functional wellness doctor that was, suggested to me by one of, the girls in my yoga class, and to her and ended up getting an HRT and all this stuff, and I went back a year later to my gynecologist. I said, "I have really exciting news. Not only am I feeling so much better, I have a book coming out, and it's a humor book on perimenopause." And she's like, "Well, I wanna be your first guest to hey, our our people here are not really perimenopause is getting better." She said, "But we still have a lot to learn." And she did, in fact, reorder my every day. And cool, and she also said to me, "I do remember you. Not that you're gonna remember everyone, but I remember I went home and prayed for you." Because she said, You concerned me, like, I was worried about you." Like, she knew I was, like, not good psychologically, you know what I mean? But yet
Yeah.
she knew what to do to help me.
Yes,
She's
yes,
a
yeah.
very sweet woman, but she just had a lot to learn, and but at least she's caring enough, and like I said, her practice is now trying to get more of that, education that they didn't get before.
Yes, absolutely. Now the functional doctor, are there for those who may be listening, are there other words like they might start Googling functional doctors in my area? Are there other terms for functional doctors just in case somebody wants to Google?
Right. I mean, I would Google, like, functional wellness, functional medicine, for, holistic perhaps, holistic medicine. They do kind of all go by
Mm.
different, but terms, it's true. But yeah, it's usually it's more like a holistic sort of idea where
Yes.
they're looking at, not just one thing or one symptom or whatever, the whole being.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm glad I asked that question because I can see somebody in one geographic location and functional wellness might not pop up, but
Right.
holistic may.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I want to ask you to reflect on some of the chapters for us. Alert for those who will be reading Christie's book. She liberally uses the F bomb. So if you're sensitive, this book is not for you. But if you're a grown up, a total grown up woman that wants to hear the real truth and the whole truth, uncensored, pick up her book. And that's what you need during this time of life is reality. You're not a 7-year-old little girl anymore. You need to pick this up and read it. Okay, so Christy, tell us about chapter 1. Chapter 1 is titled, let me pull it up here. Chapter 1 is titled, My Brain is on a Long Ass Vacation. Tell us about that.
Oh gosh. I mean, yeah, I basically share so many different stories and anecdotes of ways where I'm like, what is happening with my brain? Because I think one thing that a lot of women feel, besides you'll hear from women in their 40s, and I said you can be in perimenopause in the 40s early as your 30s. But they'll say, I don't feel like myself, or I don't feel right. But the other thing is when it's one thing you have physical symptoms, but then when your brain starts feeling like it's like malfunctioning, you're all of a sudden, what is happening? And I mean, I make light of it. That that's the way we get through life. Like you get through life with humor, and
Yes,
perimenopause is nothing if not hard, and that's how you get through hard things is with humor. So that's why I wrote.
absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, to be perfectly honest, and I bet you a lot of women out there was like, am I going through early onset Alzheimer's?
I know. I
Well,
was thinking last night. I was like,
when you can't think of words, and of course, this really bothered me being a writer. I'm always trying to think of just the right word to use. I couldn't think of like actual words. So when you can't think and you're like, and that still happened to me now, and I'm even on HRT, but it's like there's like a pill you take this, oh, all my words came back to me now. But
yes, yes,
well, you're like, so I tell stories about how like I came into my house and like I could not remember my house alarm, you know,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
because I'm like the thing's gonna go off any minute, and the cops
Yes,
are gonna come to my door. I'm like,
yeah,
shitless.
yes.
And I'd be like, do you live here? I'm like, of course I do. I don't know the code though.
And then I
Well,
look at you like, well, but yeah, I remember that. I remember losing words and I was like, oh my gosh, I was just really concerned about myself. Like you said, is this Alzheimer's? So I mean, it's scary, but that's why your book has been written to help reassure those who's going through this period of life. First, check to see if you have perimenopause before we jump over to Alzheimer's.
exactly. I wasn't telling anyone about it because I was embarrassed.
Yeah,
Or horrified and embarrassed and like, oh my God, what's happening to me?
yeah,
And then there for a while, I thought, this is like, maybe I had COVID at one point. This is long-term COVID. But if you did the math at the time, Eric, my husband's like, you would have had to be patient zero, Christy. And I'm like,
yeah, yeah.
okay, I think that's true. But it was just not to make sense. All these
Yeah.
different things that I was having vertigo and I was having this weird taste in my mouth and I was smelling things that weren't there and
Ugh,
a lot of burning thing. Like if you smell burning cigarettes or burning toast or burning what, like all burning smell, and you
oh my
smell it, you
God.
swear that you smell it, but it's inside your head. Like it's not, it's phantom smell.
Ugh,
Weird things happening at once. How do you not be like,
highly concerned. Highly concerned, definitely, definitely. Well, now let's go over to chapter 3, which is titled "Hooray for HRT," and we've hinted on that a little bit, and we've already said that there was a scare at one time, and now they've cleared that up, and so just one more time for clarification, what is the HRT as we see it today, the safe version?
Yeah, so, like, and again, everyone like, I'm in this perimenopause thread, with this mothers group that I'm in, and so we're all always comparing notes, like, someone will pop on and say, "Here's what's going on with me," or, "Here's what they're doing to my HRT now," because 'cause you're always, like it's just like even if you get put on any kind of medication or, like, you say you put your child on a medication, and then they grow, and then you're like, "Wait, now I have to titrate. I have to figure out what level should they be on now? Is this the right one working for them?" Our bodies are always changing. So, we'll get on there, we'll talk about, well, I'm on this many milligrams of progesterone because probably the first thing your doctor will say if you're sleeping horribly, which is a very, very, very it's usually one of the very first signs of perimenopause, is insomnia, crappy sleep. You can't sleep through the night. You wake up with racing thoughts in the middle of the night. You can't get back to sleep.
Yep.
They'll say, well, first of all, I know you need progesterone because you start losing progesterone. I want to say, and again, I'm not the doctor, but I want to say my doctor said it was something like in your 30s or after about the time you're done childbearing a lot of the times. But anyway, you start to lose progesterone. So that's the
Yes.
first thing they'll put you on, which really helps sleep. But then there's also, as I said, testosterone, estrogen. Different doctors believe in different things in terms of the estrogen, when to put you on it and all that kind of a thing. And then there's different levels, and then there's different ways. Like there's different patches, or
Yes.
I take a testosterone cream, but I know there are pellets or HRT pellets that kind of get injected just underneath your skin, and then you get that every few months. There's all different types of ways to get your HRT and depending on your doctor, what they might offer. But essentially, yeah, bioidentical hormones is what you typically. There
Okay.
may be a time that you would need a synthetic. Again, this would be between you and your doctor, but for the most part, the bioidentical are very, very safe. I know.
Got it. Thank goodness that that has been clarified. Thank
Yeah.
goodness. Okay, so now chapter 17. No, we got that one. Let's see here. Oh, that was page. Okay. I was looking at page. Okay, here we go. Showing my ass and kicking some ass. Chapter 17. What is that?
I'd almost have to flip through it to see what I know the showing my ass part. I know what that one is referring to. I can at least speak to that one. But that one was when I went through airport security, and I remember, like, I was bending down to get something, and the guy behind me leans over and said, "I can see your butt crack."
Oh,
And
yeah.
I was just horrified. You have to understand, and there's a whole story leading up to this end of the I was so nervous about taking this. I was feeling highly anxious about going. I felt nervous for all these different reasons of like, I'm going to get behind on work and I'm going to be missing my cats. And I was stressing out about a million things. Should I even go?
Right.
Go. I'm going to go on this trip. I need to go. I should go. I'm supposed to go.
Yes.
I go. I'm already highly anxious. And this guy has the nerve to tell me he can see my butt crack when I bent over. And I was like, I'm confused. Like, are you offended? Is this supposed to be a compliment? Like, why would you tell me that? And I was like, is there a hole in my thing? And he's like, oh no, it's just your pants were riding low so that when you bent over, and I'm thinking, well, did you have to look that? I mean, it was just, I was horrified and whatever. But then I thought, okay, I have to write about this because again, it's like hilarious, but it's also that thing of like when you're already feeling like self-conscious and your self-esteem is taking a hit, and then some random dude is commenting on your butt. And so then there's another part in the book that I mentioned because another random guy a few weeks later, I'm at the grocery store and he stops me in the bread aisle and he said, "You take compliments well." Oh crap. Like, what is this? Am I getting set up for another butt crack like comment? Like, what is happening? And I go, I just have to tell you, you are a beautiful woman. Oh, and it was like, and it wasn't creepy because every woman knows what I'm talking about. If a guy says something, if they're like hitting on you, if they're like a creep and you're grossed out and, peed out, or if it's a genuine compliment and and this guy was just trying to offer a genuine compliment. And it was very nice to hear because when you get to a certain age, women often feel very invisible.
Yeah,
Right? And
absolutely.
really hit me in perimenopause too, where you feel like I'm saying, like, people need to comment on my looks or my butt crack or
Right.
anything. But, where you just feel like, "Do you wanna see me anymore? Am I the white car that gets,
Right.
Anyway, it was just like a very, very sweet thing, and I said thank you or whatever, and he turned the corner and we went on with our day, but it's just funny because, again, another thing that happened in perimenopause is my self-esteem did a nosedive.
Yeah.
I just felt awful about myself. I had no self-confidence. I'm like, "What's in me?"
Yeah. Yeah.
From another thing that happened. I mean,
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I can see that. And let's go back to, I was saying I had a easier menopause, but I will tell you one thing that it did. It destroyed my hair.
mm,
And my hair was one of my crowning glories. I always had very thick and beautiful hair, like, just beautiful, enviable hair. But that menopause, and perimenopause just took it away. I'm back on the trail of regrowing it, but it took it, you know.
yeah,
And so if it
yeah,
wasn't
that's another thing, and that's true.
Yes, yes, and so thank goodness for a lot of various hair implementations these days to help you get through that hump.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm on the road to recovery from that, but that can be devastating if you're a person that doesn't have access to hair implementations.
And
You know,
that's important, because I know I've made some videos on my Instagram just talking openly about my self-conscious about my minnow belly or this thing or that
yes,
thing. And it's
absolutely.
amazing. There have been some common kind of hater comments where people are like, well, just be grateful you're alive, or just be why are you so focused on your stupid looks or whatever. And it's like it's not about that. It's about we want to good inside our own skin, whatever
Absolutely.
happens. And
Absolutely.
that's, I think, something that a lot of women would relate to, right? So whether it's your hair that you feel like, okay, my hair is really important to me, or my skin, which also gets dry and whatever.
Yeah, it can get,
Okay,
pimples return
yes,
for some women.
exactly.
Yeah.
You get wrinkles and zits and mustaches.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, facial hair. They say facial hair. So stay on top of that, ladies. Stay on top of that facial hair. Yes. We've got all kinds of little things you can buy at the drugstore. Just zoom it off. Stay aware. Now, last but not least, let's just give a little hint on chapter 35. And chapter 35 is called Unfazed and Unfiltered, which is this book right here.
Yes, I do appreciate you giving the disclaimer about my F bombs and such. And it's funny because I was never really one to drop
Right.
for before perimenopause, but there's something about that unleashed it in me, and it felt so good. And it's not like in my daily life, I'm out there dropping F-bombs all the time, but it's just when you talk about this subject, it's like, wow, but in a funny way. Anyway, yeah, phased and unfiltered is kind of just that idea of like, there is something that happens. And this is one of the things about perimenopause. We're not caring so much about what everybody else thinks. And we start focusing more on ourselves and like what do we need as women? And isn't this something that we should probably be doing earlier in life? But there's something with the decline in estrogen, because estrogen and all the hormones make us very caring and loving and nurturing. And that's all
Yeah.
great. I'm not saying that's anything wrong or that we lose all of that in perimenopause. I'm not saying that. But it's like suddenly you're just like, I don't want to cook dinner, so I'm not going.
Right.
I feel bad about it. And, or whatever it is, you're like, I don't want to do that. Now that doesn't sound good. And before, you're always the people pleaser, like, well, I should. I mean, think about how many times we say should in our lives. And then you get to this point and you're like, "Oh, no, I'm actually one in with myself for a second.
Absolutely.
What do I need?
Absolutely.
Okay to be that." And we finally get that when we get to perimenopause. There's something that we let ourselves check in with ourselves for maybe the first time since we were a little kid.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And first of all, it's kind of for personal survival. You can check in. Or you'll think, like we were saying earlier, you'll think you'll skip from perimenopause and menopause and jump all the way to Alzheimer's, so you need to check in.
Yeah.
What's going on? What's going on? Well, Christy, I want to thank you for coming to us today with your honest book about a very real subject in millions of women's lives. I'm thankful that a lot more people are talking about perimenopause and menopause. I'm very grateful for that because back in the day when my mother was going through it, it was in the shadows. So thank you for writing your book. And speaking of her book, we will have information about that in the podcast show notes as well as the YouTube description box below. Thank you so much, Christy, for joining the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.